Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. There was no audio. Wanted to fully fresh restart for today's Daily Truth because today's Daily Truth is not going to be an easy one. It's going to be difficult to talk about. It's in regards to the Minneapolis school shooting. Obviously, heavy weight on any human being with a heart. Anger's flaring, gun control being thrown around as the answer, and a lot of questions. So today's Daily Truth is not going to be easy. I encourage you to like it and share it if this is something that fits your fancy. If you're not sure yet, maybe wait till the end. Maybe wait to have the conversation because it's going to go both ways. Although this is of course, we're having trouble streaming to Facebook. What the heck? Oh man, this is a bummer. How about fix it? Sorry, guys. Well, there we go. I think it's back. All right. Back on Facebook. Rhonda sees me on Facebook. All right. Let's try this again. Today's conversation about the Minneapolis school shooting. I've had to restart this one 2 times. This is frustrating. The whole conversation is frustrating. The conversation in my chat is frustrating. The conversation, not in the chat here, the conversation on my Facebook and all the groups is frustrating because it's a bunch of people yelling at each other and without any actual strategy. And I hate to say this, and this is political. I get it. The left's ideology around mass shootings is rooted in falsities. It's rooted in media propaganda. It's rooted in words that carry no weight, like gun control. There's so many problems. The shooter, let me be very clear, based on the research that I have right now, the shooter legally purchased the firearm. So if there was gun control in place, he would have been able to do it unless you just stop allowing people to buy guns. Again, this is Thursday morning at 10 a.m. ish, 9 a.m. ish. So who knows what'll come up from this point. There's things we know, and there's things that should be addressed immediately at this point. I'm not starting my Daily Truth the usual way with what made you smile today. We can end in that because I think there's always joy to be found. Actually, you know what? I'm going to start with it. What made me smile is interesting. One facet of this shooting, and it does not bring back the 8-year-old and the 10-year-old that died. It does not help their families in any way, shape, or form. But what we're ignoring, if you've seen the video of the psychopath that was preparing for this massacre, is there were guns on guns on guns and bullets and all of these things. And to think that only 2 children passed away and perished and 17 are injured, it sounds like all of them will survive, is a form of a miracle. I mean, 2 people getting shot is, unfortunately, in today's day and age, shot and killed is a normal Friday in Chicago for 1 hour. Like gang-related shootings, this is a blip on the radar. 17 people injured and 2 people killed. This is literally a blip on the radar. And this guy had enough firepower and mental illness to kill many, many more. So there is something to be happy about. There's something not to be happy. There's something to smile about, that the school lockdown procedures worked. The psychopath, the evil psychopath, had to shoot from outside the facility and was not able to actually get in the building. So once the shooting happened, the school went on lockdown, and that is how he was not able to enter the building. It would have been very much like whatever the city in Connecticut or wherever, back east, up east, where that one shooting where the guy just went through the school and tore it up. I mean, he even had rip and tear written on one of his guns. This was a very sick individual. So that is one thing, one way to preface. If you want, I know this is probably gonna be my last Daily Truth of the week as I travel tomorrow. One bit of information: I do have my speaking webinar on Monday. It's free. Please join me. All you got to do is go to getbetteratspeaking.com. Again, that's getbetteratspeaking.com. I'm not going to do any more ads. Let's talk about today's, because I've had a lot of conversations, disagreements, agreements on my Facebook page. and I think it's important to talk about this. And it is one of those daily truths that I know can get me in trouble with some people. Some people are going to disagree from the opposite side. I've seen actually some people from the opposite side say it is time to do something. And if that means putting armed guards at the front desk or at the front of a school, maybe it's that time. Maybe it is. Maybe it's the smart time to do that. But we have to start addressing some other issues, because people are getting their feelings when we bring up the shooter. And I could tell you, when there was no description of the shooter for a couple hours, I knew it was not going to be the media narrative that they wanted. It wasn't going to be crazed white Christian shooter, white supremacist Christian shooter. No, a trend that seems to be continuing, and say something right after this. A trend that's continuing lately is a anti-religion, anti-God, anti-Christian, anti-Jewish mentality by a far leftist ideology, and in this case, so happens to be much the same as some of the other recent school shooters: transgender. I'm going to say this, very important to everybody out there that thinks that this is a hateful or confusing message. If you are transgender, you are loved by God. You are loved by me. You are a full equal from the human sense. There is nothing that makes you less than. With that said, if you have gender dysmorphia, if you are confused in the body that you are in, I can't imagine the pain you are going through. But at the same time, that is a mental illness, just the same as severe depression. And I think that if you threw a rock around a group of people at transgender, I don't think you'd find a single person that isn't battling massive depression. I can't imagine what they're going through. I can't imagine what they deal with on a day-to-day basis, looking at their body in the mirror and going, this isn't who I'm supposed to be. And then adding on top of it is that we're now a society that is celebrating it and saying, it's okay. You're 6 years old. Let's go ahead and start making the change. It's okay. No, you're confused. You know what? Let's make you the opposite gender. It's not okay. So when people ask me why we should call this out, it's because the way we're handling it isn't helping. Suicide rates in the transgender community aren't dropping. So why are we coddling it to a point where we allow this kind of mental behavior? And again, I am not saying that it's transgenders are shooting up every place in the world and they're the biggest issue and they're the biggest threat to America. I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is such a deep, deep topic. There's so many things to discuss. And in the grand scheme of things, although school shooting is at a sacred institution where we should allow our children to be safe, a school shooting is a mere blip on the radar. It's very small. There's nothing about it that relates to the greater number of mass shootings. Mass shootings, for the most part, are done in inner city, high crime communities, because it qualifies if it's over 3 people are killed. That's a mass shooting, or three people are shot. Often with handguns, not with the ARs that they're trying to scare us out of. They're done in these communities. And by the way, gun control in those communities just so happens to be the highest. So the communities where the most gun violence happens is where there's the most gun control. So when the Democrats say, well, or the left, I don't really care who you want to say, when they say that gun control is the answer, common sense gun control is the answer, it's proving by statistics that in the end, the criminals will be able to run rampant in those areas. Now, is that a 100%? No, because there's nuance to everything. There's nuance to everything. Guns may be tools. However, evil uses whatever tools they have. I'm going to tell you, if this guy, I don't know what he's identifying as, Robin, if he had a knife, I got news for you. He wouldn't have been shooting from the outside. There wouldn't have been a lockdown, and there would have been a crazy guy around a bunch of children with a knife. There probably would be more dead. You could make that argument. We don't ban knives. We don't talk about banning knives. We don't ban hammers because they could kill people. We hold people accountable. Well, I was going to say we hold people accountable, but do we? In America, this whole thought that gun control, like what does gun control even mean? In America, gun confiscation, if you want a perfect utopia of how we can say gun control would work, and it would work in this sense to a point, it'd be completely unconstitutional, and it's it would work if it would work if all 330 million people, including the criminals, were like, you know what? Let me give back my gun. Gun confiscation is the only gun control that would rid us of school shootings. But it's not viable in any sense of the word, nor is it constitutional. We can't erase the tools that are already out. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. Instead, we're celebrating the people that are broken. I mean, look at there's 3 pages of notes, 4 pages of the manifesto, which is, it seems like it was not written by this person, even though he shows it in his video, the 11-minute video that's been wiped from YouTube, up all over on X and even on Instagram, talking about how his family did everything, loved him. And it sounds like there's rumors, again, alleged, that the mom helped him start to make that transition, or maybe took him to the doctor, or took him to get his name changed, or whatever it was. So again, mother coddled this child, if it's true. But he had a lot of love for his family, which would track. So they were supportive in his journey to accept this celebration of whatever mental anguish he was going through. The letter did not match. I apologized to his siblings, even apologized to his friends. He talked to himself. Well, I mean, he clearly had multiple personalities that had gone undiagnosed, and probably had gone undiagnosed for a couple of reasons. Because you can't call somebody with gender dysmorphia and that level, you can't call them crazy anymore. You can't address the real issue. You have to coddle them and be like, whatever feels right to you. Meanwhile, this person's talking to themselves. Now, I don't know how a person, and then you can have a whole argument. Then you have the argument out of both sides. Well, if somebody with gender dysmorphia has a mental illness, they probably shouldn't be able to legally buy a gun. This person legally bought a gun after they had already had the gender change, whatever. But then there's going to be the argument, wait a second, transgender people should have the same rights. And I agree, they should. So then it becomes a question. So that your gun control is about mental illness and not allowing people that are mentally ill. But the mentally ill portion of this conversation is rooted probably in the fact that they had massive gender dysphoria and probably were on medications that have been known to cause even more mental problems. Our big issue here, one of the biggest issues, our media saturated culture. It spreads brokenness rather than healing, and we tend to celebrate pride. We celebrate people's sexual orientations and coddle them, but fail to address the core pain behind it. I would say that I'm more empathetic than somebody based on what I just said earlier. Transgender, completely equal human being. I love them just like they're one of God's children, 100%. They're going through something. My empathy leads to say, let's get to the root cause. Where is the depression coming from? Where is the sadness and the sickness coming from? And I can tell you this person's hate for God, Christianity, Jews. There was one thing that said 6 million is not enough. So to have somebody that is on the left, a leftist, clearly, that is perpetrating this whole anti-Jewish sentiment, clearly from what's going on in Israel, and has been told that it's genocide and all these things, and the Jews are terrible. Clearly, that's media propaganda that's put him there. And then, of course, we are celebrating this mental disorder that he had. We can still love transgender people, 100%. But empathy is not in celebration. Empathy is in caring and dealing with the individual. Don't mistake that. Don't mistake what empathy means. We can love all people, but acknowledging that in a situation like this, gender dysmorphia is a real mental health crisis that needs compassion and not applause. Definitely not applause. They're not being so brave. No. So let's be very clear. We face an assault on our foundational values, our faith, our morality, through media, ideology, and false narratives. The media has made it cool to not be Christian, to be atheist, to hate God, to hate Christians. That's what led to this. The gun was the tool. And I will argue again that if he would have decided to have a bunch of knives and walk in the front door of the school, it would have been a worse picture. Security is not found in bans. It's found in restoring of hearts. That is a loose phrase that I don't know what it looks like. I don't have the exact answer. I can tell you what we're doing right now is wrong, both sides of the aisle. Communities rooted in truth, people equipped to stand for decency. One thought process that we've been talking about for years from the right is why not take some of these veterans that are looking for purpose and arm schools? I believe as though there's like 88,000 schools across the country. Why not utilize them? When that conversation comes up, people's I don't want to militarize our schools. I don't want to militarize our schools. Well, what's the alternative? Seriously, what's the I mean, you're deathly afraid to militarize schools. You're deathly afraid to militarize schools and have one person with a gun at the front door for some weird reason. That's too much to you, but then you keep complaining about the kids being unalived. It doesn't make any sense. Gun control is not a cure. We're not going to put the genie back in the bottle. We're not going to confiscate all the guns. We have our country. It's just the way you have to think logically, feasibly. What is possible? And also look at what's worked. Gun control doesn't make a city safer. Strictest gun laws, most amount of crime. You can give back your guns. People are like, I'm doing something virtuous. I'm going to give back my guns. I woke up next to I have four handguns. I've got an AR style gun. I've got a shotgun. I've got a rifle. I wake up next to them every morning. The guns don't just waddle off and hurt people. They don't. Somebody with a mental illness or too much hate in their heart, they do. Our country's different than other countries. You can't, unless you're to go back and change the Constitution, go back 250 years and go back to before people could buy guns, there's no way to just say gun control will fix anything. Gun control isn't a cure. Cultural renewal is. Love the wounded, but fix the brokenness. You can't fix the brokenness by pacifying, by patronizing, by allowing mental illness to be something you can't talk about, even when it's uncomfortable. Don't ask where's the enforcement on this. Ask where the empathy is and then the treatment. That's what needs to be done. That's what I got for today. Today I was supposed to where would he go? I was supposed to celebrate 5 years with my dog, and we had to have this discussion. I think it's an important discussion to have. And I know that it's going to turn some people off politically, left, right. Whatever. And ultimately the thing that's the most sad is for the families that lost their kids, the kids that are going to be traumatized by the fact that they were praying in church and getting shot up from the outside. The gun didn't pull the trigger. The sick puppy pulled the trigger. That's it. If you haven't seen the video, I can encourage you to go to Twitter, X, and I don't encourage you. It's sick. It's gross. Also, last thing, and this is about ABC. They started telling the story of this individual. And if you see, I took screenshots because I watched the video. The guy had anti-Jewish sentiment, anti-Christian sentiment. Where's your God now? And they managed on ABC to the reporter said he had Donald Trump on on some of the guns. Didn't say what it said. Said Donald Trump on some of the guns. And then the next sentence, it's like they telegraphed this so perfectly. And then in the next sentence said, and had racial slurs as well. So therefore grouping Donald Trump and racial slurs instead of the fact that unrelated on different guns and whatever, it actually in multiple places said, kill Donald Trump. You left that part out. And this is why we have a society that does it. Because there's going to be people that only watch that clip. And they're going to go, I told you he was the white supremacist that believe in Donald Trump, ignoring all the other stuff. That's it. That's what I got. God bless. Don't surrender your pets. Don't be a garbage human being. Please join me on my speaking workshop, my speaking webinar, getbetteratspeaking.com. Join me on the 1st, Labor Day night. No rest for the weary. Take it easy, guys.